Welcome back to Sarah Has Questions. We're kicking off season 4 with the mental load. And if you don't know that term, you definitely know what it is. It's all that mental planning that we do to get things done. And oftentimes we do it for other people. Yeah, if you're starting to get a little angry, I get it. But the good news is we have an expert in-house today who's going to help us with some tips on balancing the mental load. I'm Sarah King, and I have a lot of questions. What exactly happens when you orgasm physically? Will popping a knuckle or a joint give us arthritis? What can we learn from our poop? If I have sex the night before my pap smear, can it mess up my results? In this show, I get to ask all these questions to WakeMed doctors who happen to know everything about everything. Sarah Has Questions is a production of Capital Broadcasting Company and Mix 101.5. It's presented by WakeMed. Today, I am speaking with a psychiatrist, not for me for once. Her name is Micah Krempasky. She is a doctor of psychiatry with WakeMed. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
And you've been here before.
I have,
so
yeah.
Welcome back. Do you remember what your episode was about?
Oh, absolutely. We talked about boundaries. And I just said today I need to go back and listen to it because we all need to learn about boundaries and have refreshers.
100%. And so many of my friends, just an FYI, came up to me and that's been their favorite episode.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that it touched people and it was, resonated with people.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all need boundaries. Well, today...
Yes.
I think it's going to segue into what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about the mental load, which my husband and I've been with him since 2004, and the only fights we would ever get in was about chores. And I would be like, dude, we need to need to clean the bathroom. He's like, well, just tell me to do it. And I'm like, I don't want to tell you to do it. He's like, well, and he couldn't grasp. He legitimately could not grasp that it was like the act of thinking was too much for me.
Yes.
And so then I learned there is something called the mental load. So define the mental load for us?
Yeah. So the mental load is a concept that comes out of trying to put words around the human experience. And so when we think about feelings, they're really hard to define and we're constantly trying to put words to it. And the words don't always come.
Right.
And so in the time of COVID, 3 sociologists were working together to figure out how to define what was happening for people. And they came up on the term of mental load because it's not just about the emotional experience. It's also about the cognitive experience. It's all coming together, and it's about the load. It's about the whole pieces coming together into one big thing and helping break that into smaller segments that people can understand.
So what are the segments of the mental load?
Yeah, so it's about the work,
Okay.
getting things done, actually just accomplishing the task. But it's also about caring for the emotions, of organizing, of pulling it all together, the thinking, the feeling, the anticipating, all together.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yes.
And is it just me, and I hate to make blanket statements, but do women seem to carry the mental load more often than men? And I mean that by we are the ones who tell you what to do, when we're going to go on vacation. Yep. I was the one who said we're buying a house, we need a new car. It's always stems from me.
Yes.
So do you think that's true, that women often carry it more often than men?
So I spend a lot of time thinking about that. And I do think that sometimes things fall into gender roles. But it only falls into them if you allow it to.
Right.
And so I think a lot about this in my own relationship, that I try to do things on a strength-based kind of theory. Not just because I'm female and you're male, we're going to do it this way.
Okay.
Or, how society has always done it. I much prefer to think about it in, wait, who does that best? Or who gets the most joy out of this? Or what is really draining for me? But if we just allow it to go along traditional gender roles, then yeah, I do think it falls to women.
Ah.
But I also think there's another way that you can look at it.
What's that?
I really think that it maybe falls into something that we do really well as women. We're really good multitaskers.
Well, that actually leads you to my next question, not my second question. I think we're on my 5th question, if we're going to be exact. Is that I once heard that men are lateral thinkers and women are lateral thinkers and men are linear thinkers. And from what I've understood that to mean is that we're good multitaskers,
right,
and men are good taskers.
Yes.
And so that would lead us to always be the one carrying this freaking mental load.
Yes.
But is there any credence to this?
Yeah, so I think about it in a different term. So I think about it in an evolutionary perspective. One time someone asked me about, we were talking about how women can be really harsh to one another and how, we can really test one another.
Catty.
Moms and daughters, yeah. And someone asked me, why is that? How did that develop over time? And so I had this evolutionary perspective on it, that in the way past, women were at home building community. That was our role, while men traditionally were hunters and gatherers. They were out looking for food. And so women have this ability to build community, to take care of the whole village and doing that together. And so I think we have this really amazing skill set to be able to care for the emotional needs, to understand what needs to happen, of an ability to pull together all the things that go into making the day go well, the week go well, and our lives go well.
Interesting. So how did the original question that brought you to that evolutionary thought was that we were catty to each other. How does that work evolutionarily speaking?
So this is really fascinating. So I think that as women, we had to develop skills of how do we make sure that the community is good, but without the ability, or without losing our ability to have children. And so I need you to be my partner enough to be able to help me cook, to take care of the children, to mend the clothes, whatever needs to happen, but not close enough to steal my mate. And so we have to test each other of how far can I rely on you for the things that I need without you taking away my partner.
There is a word for that. It's called trifling. Are you trifling? Are you trying to get my man? Oh, okay. Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah, so if we take all of these and these skills that we've developed, wow, they're actually, I really think of them as a gift.
Yeah, they are. Although it gets to a point at times, and maybe you're correct. Not maybe. I think you are correct that we could delegate a bit more because we may be good at organizing and thinking ahead and remembering and planning and writing things down.
Yes.
I'm not bitter at all about this. And
well, I think it's when we go into those gender roles as well, that is the expectation.
Right.
And just because we're good at it doesn't mean that we have to do it.
Right.
When it just falls and we're not deliberate or thoughtful about it, that's when we can get to a place that it's overwhelming, or that you can get really resentful about it. It's all about being thoughtful and coming up with a plan for how you're dealing with the things that are happening.
Yeah. In all honesty, though, I do love taking care of my family. There is a level of the oxytocin, the happy hormone does get released.
Yes.
Do you hear about it more from moms than regular women? Not regular women. We're all regular women. I mean, people who have children versus people who do not have children.
Well, if we think about the mental load, it's all the different facets of your life. So it may be raising kids. It may be taking care of parents, work, partner. It just depends on what what makes up a person's life. So I think raising children is a really big piece of life that comes with a lot of stress. And so when you think about all the pieces that go into parenting, then I think moms do have this extra set of things. But that doesn't mean that someone who doesn't have children doesn't have as many things going on.
Sure.
They may just be different.
That's true. So if we're asking our partner to do this, and this is something that I've noticed as I've gotten older and watched couples break up, and it all seems to be the same thing. They ask their partners, and their partner just simply won't do it. Does that make that partner a narcissist?
Narcissism is such an interesting topic. We could do a whole series on that. And
Girl, I have got so many people in my life that could be examples of it. It's kind of insane how common it is. But I didn't know if it was something that you could point to.
Yeah. So I think of it in terms of, laying out conversations and talking about what's important. So I think that sometimes if people don't do it the way we want it done, then we assume that they're not helping us. But what makes my way right? Just because it works for me and it makes sense to me and I think it's the best way to do it, that doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. And so I've really had to learn this in my own life, that when I stop and listen to how my husband does something, I actually learn a lot.
Right.
And so I take, for example, cleaning. He is such a good cleaner.
Oh,
but
my husband's an excellent cleaner.
He does not clean the same way I clean. Like, I clean by stuffing stuff in drawers, and then the house looks fantastic.
You're a tidier, not a cleaner. There's a difference.
He has out like some steam machine, and the way he uses a vacuum cleaner is not the way I use a vacuum cleaner.
My husband's the same way. Like, I will wipe the counter. I will keep it clean and tidy. I will make sure there's no mold growing. Yep. But when he cleans the bathroom, I mean... You could have surgery in there. It's so clean.
Exactly. So I try to learn from him of like, oh, wait, the way I do it may not be the right way. You're really good at that. How about you clean the whole house? So that, but he doesn't mind it.
Oh.
The other thing that I've learned is I really don't like to put gas in my car. It's just that mental load. It's too much for me to remember. And then all of a sudden I have no gas when I need to be somewhere in a hurry. He's an introvert. He loves getting gas. It gets him out of the family time alone in the car driving.
Okay.
I never put gas in my car.
Look at you, princess.
Right? I mean, it's using our strengths. I like to say that it's strength-based. It's just making us both happy.
Yeah.
But it is really having a conversation of this drains me. I don't like this.
Yeah.
This actually fits you really well. Why don't you do this? And that just became our rule. That's how it goes.
What's funny is my husband and I have something similar. We both loathe cleaning the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it. Mm-hmm. And so we've divided the bathroom in half. He hates cleaning the floor. That's my least, I don't mind that. So I clean the floor and I clean the counter and he cleans the toilet and he cleans the shower because I never clean it good enough for him. Right. So we've divided it in that way.
So you had a deliberate conversation around it. You looked at your strengths. You looked at what brings you joy versus what drains you. And you made a deliberate decision about something. So that's a really healthy way to do it rather than, well, you're the mom. You do that.
Right.
Like going down gender lines, which doesn't take all those pieces into consideration.
Yeah. And whenever you aren't addressing these things, I'm sure it affects you like physically.
Oh, yeah. Like those things that fester inside of us. Like I think about this when I'm cleaning the kitchen and my whole family is sitting watching TV and I am in the kitchen like banging those dishes.
Cleaning,
right?
Yes.
Well, why don't I just go sit down with them? Why am I choosing to be angry about that instead of, one, saying something and asking for help, or two, taking reflection to say, does the kitchen actually have to be cleaned right now? Or could I go enjoy some downtime with my beautiful family who's sitting over here and giving myself a moment to sit? And sometimes I will ask them and they're like, well, I just want my food to digest for a minute. And I'm like, oh, that's a thing? Like you get to sit down for that? And so I learn from them. Like, oh, wait, the kitchen does not have to be cleaned immediately after dinner is finished.
Yeah, I've actually taught my husband that one because I go to bed quite early. I do a morning show and I get up at 4.
We are the same person.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where's your morning show?
It's in my chair with my coffee and my email.
Oh, that sounds, But, so I don't get to spend much time with him at night. And so I'm like, dude, do the dishes later. And come hang out with us.
Yes.
And sometimes he'll do it. And sometimes I don't have much gas left. I have to do it now or it's not going to get done.
Right.
But all right. Well, so now we know what the mental load is. Mm-hmm. And we know what it can do. I'm assuming it can affect our sleep. Yep. I'm assuming it can affect, can it affect sex lives?
It can affect everything. So it's stress. It's like how you're dealing with all that you're doing. And if you start to become resentful, overwhelmed, all of those things, you lapse into a place of not taking care of yourself, then your whole health, your mental health, your physical health, your relationships all start to fall apart because we're not giving people the best side of us. We're not our best selves when we're showing up.
So what's the solution? How do we lighten the mental load?
Yeah, I mean, I think if there was an easy answer to that, we would all be doing it.
Yeah.
And I will say that in society, it has really become a badge of honor to be overworked and underslept and all of those things, right? Like we're constantly talking about, oh my gosh, you just won't believe how stressed I am.
Yeah.
And we wear it as if that's something to be proud of.
Yeah. And have you ever found yourself like in a time with no stress and you're like, God, I feel like I should be doing something.
Yes. We don't give ourselves the freedom
to enjoy
just
and soak
enjoy
in that
life.
moment.
Yes. Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what are some steps we can take?
So I think that we first need to be self-reflective and we have to think about what makes us happy and kind of what's the purpose in life, right? Like, is it
just, deep thoughts?
Nothing major. But we're kind of on this hamster wheel. What are you trying to get to?
Yeah.
Is it really the money that makes you happy? Is it the next career ladder? And that's different for every person, but I think you have to be thoughtful about that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the deep, big, existential thing that you need to explore.
You could go see a therapist.
That would be, the best
That's
answer.
what you guys do.
Absolutely. Everyone needs a therapist.
Oh, I know that's right.
So it also, I think that you have to prioritize taking care of yourselves. So part of the mental load is how we're taking care of everyone else. How do you stop and say, okay, I'm taking care of other people with this amount of my time. What am I doing to take care of myself? And so the first thing that I think we need to do is make sure that we have a good primary care physician, that we're taking care of our health, and that we're showing up as our best self. So, is our health okay? Have we done our preventative care? Because the mental load is going to get worse if your health starts to decline.
Sure, absolutely.
So doing your preventative care, getting your mammogram, getting your colonoscopy, all the things that you need to do, and making sure that your body and your health is geared up the best it can be for you to be feeling your very best.
I was thinking, when you mentioned like taking care of your parents, because middle age is such a weird time. You've got your family, and then your parents start to age, and I swear you only get about 5 years where everybody's doing great.
Oh yeah, and then there's this thing called menopause in there as well. Like on top of all of those things.
Yes, which no one told you about until recently.
No one told us about it. No one is talking.
I went to my doctor. Short side note: went to my doctor, and the nurse was like, "Well, first time ever. You still getting periods?" I'm like, "Well, could we have bridged this subject?" At some point, yes, I am. And what does it mean if I'm not? Like, what am I? Like, they don't talk about it. It's so insane. Anyway, we have a menopause episode. You should go back into the archive and look at it. Okay, just going to point that out. But yeah, so you've got your parents here, and you've got your kids, and you've got your husband, and you got your work. And then, what if one of them becomes really drained? Let's say your parents get really sick and you come into a caretaker role. How are you supposed to find time for yourself?
Right.
Without sacrificing what really needs to get done? Like, I mean, maybe you don't have the answer to that. It's $1 million question.
Yeah. So I think the answer is it's never going to be in a time when you don't have anything. There's always competing priorities. And it's about weighing the priorities that are in your life right now and figuring out how you give the time to which ones need it. And that's a constant changing depending on what the needs are.
And maybe sometimes you have to say, I can't, even though you could use my help right now. You have to say no sometimes.
Right. That goes back to our boundaries episode.
That's right.
Of thinking about how you say no and what you say yes to, and how you ask for help and how you delegate. And then again, how you show up as your best self. So the other thing that I would do is make sure that you're protecting like your sleep. That's one of the most important things. So we have to be efficient. So we have to optimize how we feel. And if you're not sleeping, then things get much, much harder.
Oh, God,
so
yes.
When I don't sleep, I'm irritable and I don't think well and I'm totally inefficient. Well, I just made things 100 times worse because I have so much to get done. I'm not showing up as my best self.
Right.
I am completely off my game. And so then it piles on.
Compounds.
So I think you have to just stop and really start to prioritize what are the essential parts for me to be my very best. For me, it's sleep. We don't mess with mama's sleep at home. Like everyone knows that 8 o'clock, she's done.
Yeah.
Like don't talk to her. Don't ask her anything.
Yeah.
Yes, please go to bed. Just go on. We don't need you anymore.
That's exactly what they say to me at my house.
Yes, we just had to define that in the house.
Yeah.
That I am not very good for anyone at those late hours, like 8:15.
8:15. Even on a Friday. Wow.
I mean,
maybe
sleep
9
is really important. I mean, I do stretch it to 9 on the weekends. I get
party
really
animal.
wild.
Wow.
Yes, but those are things that are really important to me. We just don't mess with it, and
Yeah.
I protect that because I know that tomorrow will be so much better
Yes.
if I get my sleep. And the other thing I don't miss is exercise because again, when I work my body, it takes away my stress. It brings me mental clarity. It really helps me, and it doesn't have to be an incredibly hard workout.
Yeah.
Just going outside, moving my body, doing yoga, stretching, just something that helps me clear my mind.
Well, I also like to think I've reached an age now where it's no longer about vanity.
No.
It's about longevity and being comfortable in my skin, like literally comfortable, not like, not comfortable in my jeans, comfortable in my skin. And there is a difference.
Yes. On the snow days, I ended up sitting a lot because I worked from home. My body hurt so badly. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm not as young as I once was. This body needs
hurts.
to move.
Lord
yes,
Almighty.
who knew?
How'd we get here?
I know.
And for the younger listeners, it's coming. It's coming. All right. Well, this has been fascinating. And I do recommend going back to the boundaries episode if you haven't listened to it, because they really do go hand in hand.
They do go hand in hand because it's all about giving yourself where you can give your very best. You can't be all things to all people. And so you really have to define what's really important to you. How do you make sure that you don't overwork yourself? And how do you be your best self? And if you're giving 100% to everyone else, then you're actually not giving them your best because you're falling apart.
Yeah. Well, that's all we have to say about that. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. It was great to be here.
And if you have any questions, you can always find Dr. Krempasky on WakeMed.org. And there's lots on the mental load out there. Take care of yourselves so you can take care of others. That's really the bottom line.
Absolutely.
Isn't Dr. Micah the best? If you didn't catch her episode on setting boundaries, you need to check it out. It's really, really good. We'll put a link to it in the show notes. To find a therapist for yourself, go to WakeMed.org and click Find a Doctor. And if you could, do us a favor. If you like our show, please leave a rating. 5 stars, if you please. Or a review in your favorite podcast app. It really does help others find our podcast. See you next time. Oh my God, I have goosebumps. That was so good.
Oh, good.